and welcome back to the HSP Connection with me, Robbie Lee.
And me, Philippa Robinson. This is where we share our stories, insights, and strategies to help fellow highly sensitive people navigate their own path to living a fulfilling and meaningful life.
We're on a mission to reclaim the word sensitive and help the world see the strength in sensitivity. Philippa, what are we talking about today, my friend?
Well, today we're going to talk about things that are normal for HSPs.
Aha. And the subtext of that being maybe that non-HSPs might find them a little strange.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not as normal for them.
Not as normal. And yeah, they don't necessarily make sense for non-HSPs, but we're not really bothered about that. We're talking about what makes sense for us. And, what we're aiming to do here is normalize all these things, aren't we?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. Because before we knew we were HSPs, sorry, were you going to say the same thing? Before we knew we were HSPs, we didn't know that there was lots of other people experiencing the same thing.
That's right. And the messages we often get as HSPs, certainly before we understand what's going on, is that there's something wrong or broken or weird about us. And so it is one of our missions just to get the word out. This is normal for us.
Exactly.
This is very normal. It's how we see the world, and it's really useful, actually.
Oh, it really is. And it just helps makes sense of things, I think. And maybe what's going through my head is sort of maybe reestablishes some sort of idea of order when it's felt like there has been no order because nothing really seems to make sense. And everybody's telling us that the way we experience the world isn't right or the same, or, all of those things. So, where should we start?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'm going to start with kind of an easier one, which is something really normal for us, definitely normal for me, is being moved by beauty, like often moved to tears, but really feeling it deeply. And that beauty can be in the form of nature, which is it often is for me. I mean, I can't tell you how many sunsets I've watched. It's one of my favorite times of day. Like the sky does so many amazing things, and it's just it can be art, just looking at the creativity and the way the artist has put themselves into their piece. It can be poetry, words, right? Yeah. Poetry, and that, I mean, just like we feel the creativity in nature just so deeply in our bones.
Yeah, we do. And music as well.
Oh, yes.
I completely agree with you. The number of sunrises. I mean, I quite like a sun. One of my favorite things is a cold water swim at sunrise. That is just incredible. But anything to do with nature, like you say, any of those big, awe-inspiring, and I don't mean as in it has to be big. I actually mean big as in awe-inspiring, and that could be actually something really little. It could be the most dainty little flower or insect or something, but by big I mean a big reaction, that something gets you inside and it's a bit like a lump in your throat or your eye, your eyes are going to fill up. And I think I used to hide that. And think, everyone's going to think I'm a bit strange, but now I'm just like looking around to find out who else might be having the same reaction. And if nobody is, I'm like, okay, well, that's just me, but I'm loving this and I'm savoring it and I'm taking it in.
Yes. Oh, I remember one time at work, a coworker and I, we were taking a break. We took a walk outside. So we're walking through the parking lot, car park. Yeah. And it was fall, kind of the beginnings of fall. And there was this little tiny maple leaf, like little tiny maple leaf that was beautiful red, and it was down on the asphalt. And I picked it up and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And she was just like, you're so funny. And I was just like, am I? I was just like, it was just a normal part of my experience to notice
Yeah.
nature and its impact. And she was just like, well, that was weird. Haha. But but you're
I'm
cute,
guessing she wasn't an HSP.
No. And I don't know, I have millions of, maybe that's too big of a number. I have lots and lots of experiences like that where I was noticing something. I was feeling moved by it. Even in the noticing of it, I think
Yes,
it is unique for us as HSPs. Like we will notice things like you were talking about, you're looking around. Is anyone else noticing? Is anyone else feeling this? Right. And sometimes we're the only ones. And honestly, that makes me sad for those people who aren't noticing the majesty around us.
I know. I agree with you. And really, the message here is don't stop yourself,
Yeah.
like leaning into and really taking in the majesty of the moment.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is going to get it, but it actually those are the moments that really fill us up, aren't they? And really give us our energy and help. I don't know, just help us lean into that HSP part of us. So it's
Yeah.
really important not to ignore it.
I completely agree. As you were talking, it made me think too, it helps me feel connected to something bigger than myself. Like it helps me feel connected to
Yeah,
this earth that I am in and this whole
exactly.
system that works to keep me alive. And it also connects me to something bigger than that and like the magic in a moment. Like being able to see, I don't know, there's some like being moved by a leaf, it's just
Yeah,
it's like there's something magical about that. Like that
yeah,
life doesn't have to just be mundane and drudgery. We
exactly.
can see the beauty that is around us.
Yeah, I always feel like that when I see a rainbow. I
Yes.
just think rainbows are just so incredible. I mean, when I know somebody could describe and tell me the actual phenomenon that's going on at the time,
Sure.
I don't want to know that because that just sounds really boring. It's just look at that
Yeah.
display in the
Incredible.
sky. And if you get a full rainbow, a double full rainbow,
Oh,
oh my goodness, that's a like super day, that is.
yeah. Have
Um,
you seen the full circle
oh
before?
no,
Yeah.
I
In an
didn't know they
airplane,
even.
I've seen that. Yeah. It's actually a full circle. We normally just see half. But yeah.
Oh no, I didn't know that even existed.
Yes. Now you have something else to look for.
Oh my goodness me, every day is a school day. Really? But I
Yeah.
suppose you've got to be up in the sky to see that.
I couldn't tell you that. That's where I've seen them is
Wow,
in
how lucky
airplanes.
of you. And have you
Yeah.
seen them? Have you seen more than one
I've seen two, I think. Yeah.
on two separate occasions?
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness, Robbie Lee, how lucky are you?
This is why I like to be up high. Like cool
Yeah,
things happen in the mountains and the airplanes. Like there's cool things up there. Yeah.
they absolutely do. And interestingly, so they do, you're right. And I always think cool things happen in the water. And when we
Also true.
went to Canada last year, talking of things that move you to tears, when we went to Canada last year, we went whale watching, and as this humpback whale came up to the boat and came up really close, I was really really close to it, and I felt like it was looking at me, and I felt like we made a connection, and I was crying, and
Yeah.
I could hear someone from the back go, and it was one of the official guide people on the boat. And she said, "Is anybody else crying?" And I was going, "Yes, me." And then I went over to talk to her afterwards, and it turns out she's an HSP. So, and
Oh,
all these people were looking at us like as though you're mad. And I was just like having such an amazing moment. Um,
yes.
and I can still feel that now talking about it.
Yes.
Mm,
Connecting with another being. And
yeah,
whales are so big too. There's
yeah,
something about that. Yeah.
there is,
They
and so I don't know. I want to say so alive. I know, obviously they are, but there's
yeah.
just something quite vital about them, and
Mm.
yeah, it was just incredible. So nature and whales and rainbows and leaves and all those wonderful things that move us. It might
Oh,
not necessarily move us to tears, but we really feel them.
absolutely.
I would not want to be without that.
Right. Me
Yeah,
neither. Me neither.
yeah,
Another thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about feeling things is you and I have talked about this countless times, but walking into a room where other people already are
Yeah.
And like, we feel the vibe, like something's off here. Someone's having a fight, like, or
Yeah.
we know, like, oh, they're having a lovely conversation, or they're in an argument. Even
Yeah.
if when we walk in, it goes silent, we know the vibe, we know what's going on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and you're right. Even if everyone goes silent, you can still tell whether there's a good vibe or a "Ooh, what's going on in here." Can't? Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And you know that I really remember when I understood when I first found out I was an HSP, and I thought, oh yeah, I definitely do that. And then I started asking people, and the people around me don't get that. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, all this time I have thought that everybody else in the room can feel what I can feel. And it turns
Yes.
out, no, everybody wouldn't have been able to.
Yes. You raised such a good point. That was my experience as well. Because we kind of go along thinking people see similar things to us, have similar experiences. And when I realized most people didn't, I thought, oh, that explains a lot of things. Because,
Yes.
you know, I was walking around going, why aren't you addressing this vibe? Like,
Yes.
come on, leader in the room. Why aren't you even addressing this? And then I was having judgment for the leader. And then I was like, oh, they might not have even known it existed.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And I know I've been in meetings where I'm like, this is not good. Why is it's so obvious that something needs to be said about something or done or whatever. And I took on board from that that's obviously not important. Nobody else is addressing it,
Mm.
so it can't be important. And
Mm.
actually it turns out nobody else had got it, or if
Yes.
anybody had got it, I don't believe there would have been an HSP in the room who had got it and thought it didn't need addressing. So
Mm.
literally, I was probably the only HSP in the room.
Yeah.
And I didn't address it because, as I said, I didn't feel that was appropriate. And now, if I could go back, I might not address it in the room at the moment, but I would definitely address it afterwards somehow, either with the
Yes.
person or with somebody else. But yeah, yeah,
And this is why it's so important that we help HSPs know who they are in the world,
yeah,
because I would have similar conversations with my past self. It would be like, speak up. You are seeing something important here. You're feeling it and it is important. So it will, they're talking on the surface up here and everyone's nodding and agreeing. And down below, everyone's like, fuck this, and like, if I'm the one noticing that, like,
yeah.
I could have helped them have a better outcome. Now, there have been some instances where I was facilitating a meeting and then I would point those things out. And it was often people were like, how do you know? How do you know that?
Yeah. How do you know? How do
How
you
do
know?
you know that? Like, how
Yeah.
do you not know? Like, it's not obvious.
Well, you bring us on to another very good point that we just know things.
We know things. Ooh, yes. Yeah.
We just intuitively know sometimes. And you remembered something really great. So go on, tell us the really great thing that you remembered about films.
Oh, I was like, what did I remember?
Oh,
Yes. You and I share this, that when we're watching a show or a film, a movie, we call it, we'll often know the ending before it happens. And my wife, who is so kind to me, lets me do this, which is when we're watching something, and once I have figured it out, I will pause it and go, here's what's going to happen. And she kind of like, okay. And she just carries on with the movie. It doesn't matter to her what I'm saying. We get to the point where I'm just like, I'm right. And she'll be like, you called it, and it's a silly thing we do, but it reinforces, like, oh yeah, my intuition is on point. Oh yeah,
yeah.
I can read things. Like, it for me, it's a playful thing that we do, but it's
Mm.
constantly reinforcing that this skill set I have is real, you know?
I love that because that's a
Yeah.
very good point that it is a way of tuning into your intuition more and getting that better relationship with it
Yeah.
because as HSPs we do have wonderful intuition,
Mhm.
but we do need to have that connection, that relationship with it, which grows stronger the more that you do that. And I have a
The
similar
more you
thing
trust
with
it.
Yeah, the more you trust it, exactly. And I have a similar thing with films, and we'll get to the end, and my husband will go, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." I'm going, "What? Really? Really? That was so obvious, that is what was going to happen." I'm like, "Oh, okay, maybe it wasn't that obvious."
Yeah.
And I just have this knowing sometimes of, I will often message somebody when they're in the middle of messaging me, or I will message them and they go, "Oh God, I was just thinking about you and I was really hoping you'd get in touch." And just little big things like that happen quite a lot. And I know I'm going to hear from somebody, or I know that I'm not going to hear from somebody, or yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples, but just things like that and I can be having a conversation with somebody and it comes into my head things that they're going to say, and then they say them. I'm like, wow. Like, and it can be completely nothing to do with what we've been talking about. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, that's my intuition. Definitely.
Yes. I love those. And same for me. And it's, now that I allow myself to really notice, because I am actively growing my connection with my intuition, it's even more fun. But it's happened my whole life, but I think I brushed it off. It would just be like, it happened and I moved on. And now it's like, I savor it just the tiniest bit and be like, yeah. Oh, there it is again. Thank you. There it is again. Oh yeah. Because there's something really rich about that again, not everyone gets to experience. We have a connection with people that others don't feel.
Yeah, and it's really important. I mean, as human beings, we are hardwired for connection. And as HSPs, that comes really naturally to us because we are so good at empathy. We are so good at, we're just kind, great, funny, great people to be around, often high energy, and by high energy, I don't mean like, all the time. I mean, high vibe. That's a high vibration. That's what I'm talking about. So we are great people to be around. And that makes connection a relatively easy thing for us. Our challenge, if that's the right word, is actually connecting with the right people, connecting with the people who we want to connect with, and connecting with people who are going to light us up, and that's being careful of the people who are going to suck our energy.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. And we can tell and we can feel afterwards whether we have been with somebody who has drained our energy or somebody who has lit us up. And being discerning about those things is essential.
Absolutely. And giving yourself permission to not connect with the people that, don't connect further with the people that don't light you up.
Yeah. Because actually lots of people will want to connect with you, with us as HSPs. So and it's okay, it's not selfish, it's not being rude. You don't have to connect with everybody who wants to connect with you.
I wish younger me had heard that, oh yes.
I wish younger me had heard it too. Yeah.
That's why we say it now. That's why we say it now, to help other people. Yeah.
It is. And to help to help other people and to help it's okay.
Yeah.
Hi. If you're enjoying listening to this podcast, have you thought about joining our HSP Connection community for more connection with other HSPs? Because really, us HSPs thrive in the community of others.
Absolutely. And Philippa and I have created this space on an online platform where we can connect with each other deeply. We're going to have these awesome conversations, and we would love to get to know you over there in that space.
We would. So if you're interested and want to join straight away, there's a link in the show notes. And if you'd like to have a chat with either of us beforehand, please reach out. Now, back to the episode. Which actually brings me on to, we've got no logical order for this, really. We're just going with what comes out. And I things that are normal for us as HSPs is that the things we've been talking about, we will feel deeply. We will feel lots of things very deeply. And we will also need to process them, and we will process them deeply. So that whole, and doing that, taking lots of things in and processing them deeply will use energy. So,
Yes.
if we go through something big, we all have big life events. We all have things that, and I'm talking about happy things here as well as things that might be sad or not so great. But all of those things will take energy from us. And that is totally normal. Other people around you might look like they're dealing with whatever it is much better. I mean, I know I almost get the most exhausted from things that are really happy. And, I can just crash after those. And I definitely thought there was something wrong with me. I'll go to, I'll go to something I've been really looking forward to. And then I'm like, oh, afterwards. And it is because it takes a lot of energy. So
Yes.
So that is entirely normal. It's entirely the way it is. And it just means that I have to, and I'm sure you do the same thing, Robbie, you have to build time in around those to recharge.
That's absolutely right. And normalizing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I remember I was on a work trip, and those were always really exhausting for me because it's not in my home environment, right? It's travel, which so it's input from a lots of different sensory things.
Yeah.
Then it's usually all day meetings. That's why we're going there to meet with a bunch of people. And then it's all day meetings, and then it's lunch with other people, and then it's dinner with other people. And then it's, and I was like, "Ooh, it's a lot." And I remember this one time, and I was there for a week, and one of the higher up guys there who had also traveled in, he's like, well, those of us who traveled, let's grab dinner. And this was, one of 80 million dinners. It wasn't a formal dinner, but it was like, yeah, we've all traveled, let's do it. And I said, thank you so much for the invitation, but I really need some quiet time tonight. Everyone looked at me like I had swallowed a frog, like, and I just thought, well, hopefully I didn't damage my career, but if I don't have some quiet time tonight, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
And so normalizing it,
Exactly.
it's okay that I needed that. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I went, and I attended other dinners. So it wasn't like I didn't go to any, but you just have to set those boundaries for yourself.
You do. You do. And, I think what tends to happen in those situations, you push through and then you end up not being able to sleep. And then you're no good the day after. And then it just becomes a spiral. It can become quite a spiral. And that's what we are hoping that you will avoid if you can, especially, if you can normalize the need to have that downtime, to have that quiet time.
Yes.
It's definitely a work in progress for me still. We were talking about this earlier, weren't we? And that is definitely my learning point still. I think I can stop myself getting totally burned out.
Amazing.
But it's still, I could still do with recognizing it a little bit sooner, I think. And also, I think I was saying to you, Robbie, that maybe my way of being, certainly at the moment, it's a little bit too much on my schedule. And then more recovery time, because maybe there isn't there isn't a perfect balance, and there is always going to be a bit of, for me definitely, I think a bit too much of something and then more of this to balance it. But I can catch that time when it's getting a bit too much a lot quicker these days, and then cancel a few things if it's got that far, and really have that downtime, quiet time that I need, and give me a couple of days actually, and I'm okay. And if I needed longer, then I'd have to take longer. But that is entirely normal, and it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. It doesn't mean I need to feel guilty for that or like I'm being selfish. It's just what I need.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, yes. Yes. uh, I I love that so much too, because it's not, we're saying don't go and live life and don't go and do the things
Mm,
that tax your energy, because that is a part of life. Like, some happy celebrations are just like, loved it in the moment, and now, whoo, now I need some quiet,
yeah,
right? And it's just, that's okay. Like,
yeah.
it's how we're wired, you know. And speaking of wiring, I noticed for years I would say things like, I'm a slow processor. And I've recently started shifting that. And the reason I would say that is because my wife, who has ADHD and who is an extrovert, so she's thinking quickly and externally, blah, 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 right? And I'm like, hold on, I need to process. And that was our, code for a while, so that she could give me some quiet so that I could process. And I was internalizing that as a slow processor. Once I really learned about high sensitivity, I'm like, I'm not a slow processor. I'm just taking in 100 times more pieces of information than non-HSPs. So I have more to get through.
Exactly. And you're
So
processing it deeply as well.
I'm processing it deeply. And so it looks like it's slower. And it is legitimately slower to get to my outcome than it is for her. But it's not because I'm somehow slower, which I was taking as a negative. It's just, I'm processing deeply and a lot of
Well,
things.
you're doing you.
That's exactly right. Because also, why would slow be worse than fast anyway? It's
Exactly.
just, you
Why
know,
is fast the best way?
why is fast the best? Yeah, it
Because
isn't.
it's
It's
not.
just different than slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think I masked for a long time, and I am quite a fast processor. Well, I learned to process quickly so that I can get to an answer. But actually, was that the best answer? I mean, and what's best? And that's all sort of subjective. But learning to slow down a bit and learning to sleep on things and learning to take that little bit longer has enabled me to get to decisions that are much more aligned.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So allowing myself to process them more deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, I'm processing out loud here. Giving myself that space to do it now has definitely allowed me to reach decisions that feel much more aligned. Whereas
Mhm.
in the past, I was running on hyper speed, which was definitely part of my conditioning and definitely part of my trauma response. And I learned to just do go beyond all the time. And yes, I made decisions. I didn't necessarily make many really bad decisions, but were they aligned? No. Was I people pleasing? Yes. Is it better now? Absolutely, 100%. So I'm sharing this now just so that that is how I do it, have done it. That's how you've done it. That's how you're doing it now. There is no right or one wrong or right way.
That's
We're
right.
all different. We're all going to do things. We're all HSPs, but we're all going to do things our own way.
Yeah.
And it's all okay.
I mean, I think that's the theme of our message, right? It is
It
all
is.
okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. When you were talking, I was thinking about one of the things I started noticing, like when I would pause, is that, and like wait a day or two on a decision, it's because I had felt some kind of niggling something, and it just gave it time to kind of get to where I could get what it was telling me, you know? And what I found, like in my corporate America job, which was super fast paced, um, I got, I started getting in the habit of saying, I don't know, let me think about that, which gave me the space. But then that also started causing me problems, because then it was like, oh, well, now I have 100 things I'm supposed to be thinking about, but I still don't have the time to do that. So, then it became, which things which things matter and which things don't? Like, which can just take a quick decision where it's just like, yeah, because then the outcome, whether if it's fully aligned or a little, doesn't really matter, not that big of a deal. And which are the ones that I'm like, wait, I really want to give this thought. So that was like another layer of decision making for me. And it's, it was challenging for me because there wasn't a lot of spaciousness. It was just constantly, it felt like a conveyor belt, like, and things were bottling up, you know? So,
Yeah, I'm sure that'll
yeah.
resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah. It's, and it, I came out of that thinking, why can't I do it faster? Like
Mm,
that was my internal dialogue at the time. Why can't I just be faster? And gosh, now I would go back and tell her, wow, you're seeing things no one else sees.
yeah.
You're caring about the impacts of these decisions on the team, on the customers, on the company. Like you have a deep caring about this. You're seeing a potential problem down the line where if we catch it now, it won't be tons of rework later or egg on our face later, or like there was valuable things that I was seeing and feeling.
Mm,
And this is what I'll say to all HSPs, which is why like what we do is incredible. Like we can catch the things that other people don't. And so I want to keep encouraging us to not dim that shine, to not,
mm,
hide that, because what we do have is valuable.
yeah. And if you're getting a feeling about something, try and find some way of getting that across. If you can't do it, if it's hard for you to do it in a meeting, can you do it one to one? If you can't do it face to face, can you do it by email?
Yeah.
How can you act on that? Because I'm sure it's really important information.
Hmm.
And
Totally agree.
you are picking up on something, because that is entirely normal for us. We will pick up on these things, we will see what's coming, we will just have this knowing. All
Hmm.
those things are coming together in those moments you've just described, aren't they?
Yeah,
And we get that, we just get it.
I get it.
Yeah. um I was listening to somebody the other day talking about making how they find it really hard to work online, and work on Zoom or whatever, and much prefer face to face, because they feel that they don't get as much. They said, how can I make a connection with a 2D picture of somebody? And I was like flabbergasted at that. And I know that I make deep connections with my clients because they tell me that we do. And I was like, oh, okay. And of course, it makes that's the HSP coming in. And so that's entirely normal for us, that we can make great connections virtually. We can pick up, because we're taking in so much more information, we're picking up on all those clues and cues, and we're giving those off as well.
Mhm.
So it's not just I'm making a connection with you, you're making a connection with me, and it builds that rapport, that trust, that loving connection, um almost as easily, I think, as you do. I think it's different. I wouldn't say it's better or worse, I'd say it's
Yep.
different.
Mhm.
um and because we're in our own homes as we're doing it, usually we're feeling quite comfortable, and the client's feeling quite comfortable, and I would say that is every bit as in person, every bit as good as in-person coaching. And maybe as HSPs we excel at that.
I think you're absolutely right. And it was something I hadn't really thought about until you brought it up
Mm,
today. When, and I shared with you, like when I was getting my coaching training, this was before COVID, the COVID pandemic, and most things were geared to be in person. And I was just like, I absolutely want to be in person with my clients because, connect. And there is something about being in person And then COVID hit, everything went online. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so easy to connect with people for me online. And actually, I think there's pros and cons of both. Because as you pointed out, like being online, I'm at home, I'm in my comfort, and no one else is in my space. Like it's me. Like energetically, I'm inviting you into my space, but you're not physically here. So I can be as comfy here as I want to be. And it's still really easy to pick up on all those cues. And yay for us. Like I guess I didn't, realize this is one of the things we excel at,
Yeah.
which is great in the world we're in right now because a lot of things have gone online.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, how many people are working at home? And I should imagine some people who can't make that connect, who are working at home and don't have those great connections virtually, are, I don't know whether they're loving it. I don't know. But I should imagine there might be a certain degree of not feeling connected and maybe feeling a little bit, I don't know. I don't really want to put words in people's mouths or thoughts in people's heads about that. But I can imagine it's not necessarily brilliant all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, I think a lot of people, like I'm thinking again back to the pandemic when lots of people were forced to be separate, and
Yeah.
it was
Yes.
hard on a lot of people because they weren't feeling the same connection over
Exactly.
computers or phones. And
Yeah. Yeah.
our ability, I don't know, in my mind's eye, I just see like these fiber optic um balls of energy,
Yeah.
lines of energy. It's just like we can reach out over distances and
Yeah.
connect with, like, really make that connection.
Yeah. And that's why I was watching a woman doing distance virtual Reiki the other day, and I could
Yep.
feel it. And I was like,
$100%.
it definitely does
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
If you can feel it, it definitely works. And I was talking to somebody the other day about working on Zoom, and they couldn't believe, you see, I don't work in my personal meeting room all the time. In fact, I don't work in my personal meeting room very often at all. I will set up individual meeting rooms.
Me too.
And they couldn't believe that I did that. No, that's really interesting. You do that. And I just automatically did that. It
Same.
felt the natural thing to do for me. And they just didn't get it. And for me, it's all about the energetic of it. So in here, I am in the space that I share with you.
Yes.
Now, I had a client earlier and I was in the space that I share with her.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And that makes a big difference because that client who was here earlier is not in this space and her energy is not in this space because this is the space for you and me. And
Yes.
so I'm not saying everybody has to set up. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm just explaining is that that's what made sense for me and why. And that is part of my HSP trait playing out there.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense for me, for my clients, for the energy, for just so many levels. It just really makes sense.
I am just now in this moment recognizing why I intuitively did that 100%.
Yeah.
Because I love that you share that. Thank you. Setting spaces is part of what I do always. Like you know, before I meet with a client, like I am energetically setting the space and I close the space. And
Yes.
because it is a different energetic for every person, like exactly like you were talking about. How funny. But
Yeah.
I didn't consciously recognize what I was doing with my online meeting room, but it completely makes sense.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So you open up the energy for the meeting and then you close it down. Whereas if you
Yeah.
work in the same room all the time, for me, that wouldn't work. I'm not saying it's not going to work for anybody. I'm not saying it's not going to work for any other HSPs, but that is very normal to me. And I didn't even get that idea from somebody else. I just did it.
Me neither. I just did it. In
Exactly.
fact, I kept seeing other people doing it the opposite way, and it wasn't like something I labored over. It was just like, no, I don't want to do it that way, and I just
Yeah.
moved on. But now I get it. I really do get it.
Funny,
That's
isn't it?
fun. That's
Yeah,
fun.
it is. It is.
I think what you highlighted too is a normal thing for HSPs, which is that we intuitively make these decisions in our life, and sometimes without even our brain doesn't even get involved. It's just like, no, we're just doing this thing.
Our brain doesn't get involved. It's the body's telling us to do something.
Yes.
And also we just do it, and don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Just do it. If it feels right for you, just do it, because if it feels right for you, your energy is going to be up. You're going to be putting your all behind it. You're going to feel much more comfortable doing it. You're not going to be fighting that energetic all the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
If it feels good for you, just do it. How many times can we say that to the world? Please, please, please. We would have a happier, healthier world if that were true.
We absolutely would. You're right. And as we're talking, I'm just thinking back to the episodes we've just recently done about being employed and work. And we've done quite a few episodes, haven't we? And so anything that, if anybody's listening who has, or watching us today, who hasn't watched those, and you're interested in sort of what we had to say around being an HSP at work, or we did an episode for employers and what might help them help their HSP staff. So maybe go back and have a look at those if that's something that you're interested in, and because they're quite helpful. And because there are lots of things that come up at work, it was my train of thought. So rather than repeat them all here, go and listen to some of the other episodes. Was there anything else that you were thinking of?
I mean, I'm looking down at my list. There's one more thing I do want to bring up, which is, I mean, there's lots we haven't talked about, but one more thing for today, which is that something really normal for HSPs is people telling us things they've never told anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's because of some of the things we've talked about, our ability to connect really deeply, our deep caring for people. And we create this place of safety where, even if they aren't aware of it up here, there's something in their being goes, oh, I'm safe here. And I can say this truth, That is one of my favorite things about being an HSP, is that people trust me with their truths, because there's something so healing in itself about being able to share something within you that you can't have been able to tell anybody else, because that alone helps you feel less alone and less weird and less broken and less whatever, the act of sharing, it is. I mean, I'm going to tear up just thinking about it.
No, you're so right. And just being able to share it and be met with that, without judgment, without,
that's right.
I don't know, being laughed at or any of those things. Just, find people who you can. So if you want to talk about something to somebody, find people you can talk to. And also, if you find that you are the one that people are coming to, really, really understand what a privilege that is, to be the person who others trust and want to tell you things that they've never told anybody else, and also protect your own energy. So if you have somebody who is what some people call an energy vampire, who are constantly sapping your energy because they are getting your energy really from their interaction with you, then you need to sort of look after yourself. And whether that means not having contact with them, not connecting with them, whether it's all other manner of ways that you can try and protect yourself, please do. Cool.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was thinking in the context of, my work with clients.
Yes.
And that is, that is what we said we're going to do together.
Yeah.
But there have been other people in my life that just were those energy vampires that I've had to put boundaries around. So absolutely protect yourself. Yes, it is a gift, and you can choose who you want to use it with.
So it's normal to have those feelings around that yes, it's a privilege in some ways to be that trusted person. And also, it's quite normal for you not to always enjoy it and not always want it, and for you to have to put those boundaries in place. That is entirely normal.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that today. Yeah. Was that it?
I think that's it for today.
Yeah, there's nothing else really coming up for me now, so I feel like we've probably have come to the end for today.
Yeah.
So, everyone, remember that there is great strength in your sensitivity.
Yes, and the world needs you to be who you are. Absolutely. So for now, it's bye from me.
And it's bye from me.
Thanks for listening to HSP Connection. If you've enjoyed listening, we'd love you to hit the follow or subscribe button, as this helps other people find us. And it also means you won't miss an episode.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate the podcast and share it with anyone you think might be interested. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review.
To get in touch with us, you can email us at hspconnectionpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you with your thoughts and comments on the episodes, as well as suggestions for future topics and guests.
We are both HSP coaches and speakers. And to find out more about Robbie, go to robbielee, leigh.com.
And to find out more about Philippa, go to boldhsp.com. See you next time.